Happy Saturday, everyone. Happy Saturday. It is, of course, a special day because Saturday, for all of you boxing heads, all of you boxing fans, is almost like Christmas, right? And sometimes it's almost like you get Christmas week after week. This might not be that level of Super Saturday. I don't really think it is. Joe there is shaking his head. But we do have two rather compelling fights taking place this weekend. We do have two rematches taking place this weekend on the Zone broadcast. Golden Boy Promotions is in Cancun, Quintana Roo, Mexico, where they are putting on the rematch of William Zepada versus William Zepada versus Tevin Farmer. And in the second significant card of the day, it's another rematch. It is Sandy Ryan getting another crack at Mikaela Mayer. This time, instead of defending her title, she's trying to win it back. So we do have two good cards this weekend. We're going to be talking about the Tevin Farmer, William Zepada card. First hour, second hour, we will be talking about the Mikaela Mayer Sandy Ryan rematch. I was actually at the first fight. It was a really good fight. And I'm actually looking forward to watching that one later today. So, Joe, before we get into the nitty gritty of this fight, we're going to hear from Oscar De La Hoya himself as he talks about this fight. Let me know about your thoughts of the first fight. Like, how did you have it? I personally thought Farmer won the fight, especially with the knockdown. I thought that was really the deciding factor there. But tell me how you saw the fight and talk to me about the rematch.
Close fight shouldn't have been a close fight according to the odds. And the odds are pretty much similar in the rematch than they are to the first fight, which is surprising to me. I thought Farmer edged it, as most did. And you could argue sometimes when a significant underdog does a lot better than the odds suggest, does he get an extra benefit of the doubt with the general consensus fans in
Mm-hmm.
terms of their scoring? And you may argue that. Could you make an argument Zepeda won the fight? It's not. You could. It's not impossible to give him the decision here. But the fact that this fight was so competitive when going in, most people thought it would not be. That's a just a glaring revelation to be quite honest with you. So I was shocked at how close this was. I was shocked at how good Tevin Farmer looked, and I was shocked that William Zepeda couldn't make that adjustment because we've seen Zepeda early in fights try to figure things out, work his way through, and then in the second half, usually he would take over and wear the guy down. That didn't happen here. So we have to ask ourselves this one question, right? Because this was what we asked about Antonio Margarito, and this is what we asked about Paul Williams. These two guys were really known for their pressure. They won fights with pressure and activity. I'm talking about Margarito and Paul Williams. What happens when their opponents weather the storm? What happens when their opponents don't get worn down? What happens when their volume and aggression gets met with counterpunching, gets met with someone who's crafty that can figure out that style, that can punch in between the barrages that they throw and land maybe cleaner and more significantly. Those are questions that we had about those two fighters. And eventually, when they were pitted against certain styles, we saw what happened.
Shane
Could
Mosley with Antonio Margarito.
Correct. So could Tevin Farmer be that silver bullet that Bobby Ches most eloquently put, saying that every fighter has a bullet with his name on it? Is that bullet for Zepeda Tevin Farmer? The odds makers say no.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen fighters like that in the past, Junior Jones being one from yesteryear, a guy who could really just uh, crumple his opponent stylistically. And look, going into this fight, there was a lot of hype surrounding William Zepeda Segura. I was one of the people really talking about how good he was. You're talking about a volume punching guy who's not just a volume guy, but also hits with power, right? And not only is he just a volume punching guy that also is a power puncher, he's coming at you from the southpaw stance. Uh, he, very tricky to decipher this guy stylistically up to this point. He was rolling through people. He was on a knockout streak going into that fight. And the other thing that was quite amazing about William Zepeda, I had never seen this before, personally. I'd never seen this before, but he was ranked number one by literally all of the sanctioning bodies. And you remember that him and his promoter, I should say his promoter, Oscar de la Hoya, were, boastful, so confident. It was like they could pretty much pick and choose whichever champion that like they would go after. Remember how things weren't necessarily going all that well with the Shakur negotiations? And it's like, yeah, well, we're still ranked number one by everybody else. So it's like if uh, Shakur doesn't sign with Golden Boy, and Shakur doesn't agree to Oscar's demands and do that to get a fight with William Zepeda. Well, William Zepeda has a bunch of other options. Whereas in this case, Shakur, does he really have a lot of other options? We'll talk about the makeup of the lightweight division, but I mean, we're still waiting for Shakur to have a meaningful fight. And that's not necessarily through anything of his own fault, but up to this point, and you raised this with me, and I'd like you to go in on it, Joe. A lot of people are still waiting on William Zepeda to have a meaningful fight.
The guy's got 32 fights. He's yet to fight for a world title. 28 years old. And I know we a lot of fans, and even myself included, love to go in on Tank because, even though we had that fight with Ryan Garcia that did great pay-per-view numbers, no disrespect to Ryan Garcia, but that was not that significant fight that we wanted Tank Davis to be in. So we find ourselves, or at least I find myself asking the same question about William Zepeda, and probably to a higher degree, because at least Tank Davis did have a world title. Even though people criticize the Reggie titles, he still did have a legitimate world title.
At 130, beating Jose Pedraza.
Correct. So give him credit for that. And he was actually a slight underdog in that fight. So he gets credit for that. We've never seen Zepeda even fight for a title. And this is a guy, again, I repeat, 28 years old, 32 fights. And there was talk of him fighting Shakur Stevenson, and I thought we were pretty close to getting that fight. And at least Oscar De La Hoya led us to believe and dangled that carrot in front of us, only to pull that carrot away at the last minute and say, no, we're going in another direction. So you have to ask yourself, why are they slow rolling this guy after he's 28 years old? He's got 32 fights. I can't wrap my head around it, to be perfectly honest with you. There's got to be something that they're seeing. There's got to be something that they're not comfortable with. There's got to be something where they're saying to themselves, we may not think this guy is ready.
Well, there's something that is oftentimes said when people are doing their analysis of boxing and of boxers is the eye test, right? And, people get all kind of acclaims, right? The pundits give them all kinds of credit. They lavish them with positivity and with nice statements about how great they are. And, up to a certain point, William Zepeda was passing the eye test, Joe, right? But to your point, he was passing it until he no longer was passing it. And you're talking about essentially failing the eye test in his last fight against a guy who is an undersized, yes, he's a tricky guy, Tevin Farmer. Shout out to Napper, his manager. But he wasn't known to be a big puncher at 130, right? He had multiple losses going into this fight. And at 135, he actually dropped William Zepeda, right? A guy who was unrelenting in his forward movement, a guy who was never tepid in terms of throwing multiple combinations, multiple shots. It was almost like he wasn't really concerned of what was coming back at him. Now you get dropped by a 130 pounder, right? Now you get a split decision win that a lot of people are questioning. And I'll just say it. Is he a killer at 135, Joe? Because I'm kind of starting to doubt that he is based on this last performance. And not just that, but combined with your point of up until this point, he hasn't really been facing the elite in the division despite all the knockouts. Joe, go for it.
So let's take a look at these top guys on the list. Not
Yeah.
the ratings, because we know the ratings are the IBF, WBO. Those are always questionable. We ask ourselves, why are these guys fighting for titles that are ranked in there? With all due respect to these guys, but let's just look at the consensus, right?
Yeah.
Does William Zepeda beat Gervonta Davis in your opinion?
Tank's kind of luster has dropped a bit because of the last fight, but I will tell you this. What the Tank Davis I saw in there against Lamont Roach probably beats. I would say beats the William Zepeda that fought
Right.
Tevin Foreman his last fight.
So let's Shakur Stevenson. Does William Zepeda beat Shakur Stevenson?
Shakur Stevenson, as long as his hands are right. And apparently he's having some hand issues. I think he should definitely speak to Joe Calzaghe, and he made reference of him also reaching out to Paulie and to Floyd for advice on that. A great interview, by the way, and thank you, Joe, for recommending it. I know I go off on these tangents, but Andre Ward's interview with Joe Calzaghe, great interview, hand trouble guy. But yeah, as long as his hands are good, I'm picking Shakur in that fight.
What about Vasily Lomachenko? Does Zepeda beat Lomachenko?
Not the Loma that I saw beat George Gambosis.
Well, he destroyed.
That's what I'm saying. That was his last fight.
George Gambosis.
I'm basing it off of last fights right now.
Yeah, that's great.
That's what I'm basing it off of.
I agree with you.
Most recent performances.
Yeah, so he doesn't beat that version of Lomachenko. Okay. What about Morataya? Does he beat Raymond Morataya?
Ooh, that's a close one. They're both on the same level. You know what? I'm edging Morataya.
Because he punches harder. I think he's a harder puncher. He's a harder one punch.
He's a hard one punch. And here's the thing. Volume punchers, what are they susceptible to? Counter punches.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the more you throw, the more openings you create for your opponent. And what we've seen from Zepeda in his last fight is if you give him an opening and you land a straight short punch, you can drop him. Tevin Farmer did. So right. Yeah, I'm favorite. I actually really am high on Raymond Morataya.
No, a lot of guys don't want to mess with that guy.
No. I'm. You know what? Great point, Joe. Morataya. I got Morataya in that one.
Keyshawn Davis is at 140 now. So
no. He's still at 135.
He didn't move up to 140. Did he?
No. He said he's planning to move up, but he's not moved up yet.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Keyshawn all day. Keyshawn all day, every day. Give me Keyshawn.
Well, let's look at the new addition that just set the world on fire, upset the apple cart, Lamont Roach. Based off what we've seen.
Based off of that Tank fight, and guess what? Like Tevin Farmer, he's moving up from 130 too. Right. So, if Tevin Farmer could do it, Lamont Roach could probably do it. Give me Lamont Roach on that one.
I'm gonna throw you some wild cards.
This is crazy. I used to be so high on El Camarón.
I'm gonna throw some wild cards at you, right?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say these. I can't say definitively he beats these guys either.
Oh no!
Watch this.
Don't do it.
Frank Martin.
Oh God.
He may not even. That's 50-50 to me right now.
That's a 50-50 fight.
Floyd Schofield. 50-50, right?
Yeah.
All right, here's another one.
By the way, that would be a really good stylistic matchup.
Here's a crazy
really good
one.
Stylistic matchup.
Here's a crazy one.
Yeah. And both Golden Boy fighters.
Listen to this one.
Make that happen.
Listen to this one. A lot of people are going to disagree with me on this one. I think Abdullah Mason beats him.
No, I agree. Abdullah Mason all day, every day.
So think about this. I mean, this
how
sounds
many
like
fighters have we mentioned so far? That
And
he's not in the top. That's not the top 5. He's not making the top 5 lightweights right now.
And this is no hate here.
Yeah.
This is no, and the empirical data, really, think about it. The empirical data supports what I'm saying right now. Because how many guys did I just name that this guy did not go near?
Yeah, he didn't go near.
He didn't go near. He didn't even sniff these guys, right? He wasn't.
Wow.
He wasn't even in the same vicinity of these guys ever in his career, right? So ask yourself why. If
I'll
this
tell
guy,
you why. He's benefited from a lot of exposure on DAZN on these Saturday nights where there's no other boxing to watch. So what do? You watch Chris Mannix hype up William Zepeda, and it's worked.
and
Chris Mannix, all due respect to him, I like Chris. He's been one of the biggest guys on the William Zepeda hype train. Here's evidence of it right here. Let's have a look. Let's have a listen. William Zepeda being discussed by Chris Mannix here and Oscar De La Hoya. This is courtesy of Chris Mannix's YouTube channel. Here we go.
As well. Last thing, William Zepeda, he gets a decision over Tevin Farmer. It wasn't the most dominant performance we've seen out of Zepeda. People are talking about him and Shakur. Does that tell you anything about his readiness for that fight?
Well, that's exactly why we put him in with Tevin Farmer. Tevin Farmer is a hell of a champion. He's a hell of a fighter. He almost has the same style as a Shakur Stevenson.
So in retrospect, you're listening to this, and I'm like reading between the lines here now. He's essentially admitting openly in an interview with Chris Mannix that William Zepeda is not ready for Shakur Stevenson.
This was the litmus test. This was the barometer.
Yes.
This was the barometer fight to decide if he was ready. And apparently he failed that litmus test. He did not pass the barometer. Right?
I think I'm reading that right. Sounds like you agree with me. I mean, Tevin Farmer was the test for Shakur. And by all accounts, despite what the scorecard said, and I don't know how they got to those scorecards really, he didn't fail the litmus test. Here we go.
Similar. He gives you angles. He's a hard worker. He's in great shape. He's coming back. He's coming back moving forward, meaning he has something to prove. And he fights like it. So William Zepeda had a very hard time with him, but that's what we expected.
All right, Oscar, congratulations. Great night here in Riyadh.
That is not what you expected. That is not what you expected.
I don't think that was what they expected, Joe.
That is not what you expected.
I don't think that's what they expected. I think what they expected was a poor man's version of Shakur Stevenson that was going to give him some looks, that was going to allow him some things that he'd work on fighting a fellow southpaw, a slick boxer who can slip slide, on the inside, roll a lot of these shots, catch a lot of these shots, parry a lot of these shots, counter off a lot of these shots. And I thought they were going to just, use Shakur Stevenson light, right? The Coke Zero version of Shakur Stevenson, right? The Pepsi Max version of Shakur Stevenson. I know you like your Pepsi. I like my Coke, Joe. And guess what? They couldn't resolve the problem. So, that was what was expected. I'm sure they probably saw William Zepeda ending that first fight with a vicious body shot, maybe changing levels, slipping the jab, getting under there and landing a vicious body shot. And you know what? He was trying to do it, but it didn't really end up that way. So that was a couple, more than a couple. It was about 4 months ago, Joe. And I'm going to show you a little bit of what Oscar has been saying now as it relates to this fight. Let's have a look. Let's have a listen. Here's Oscar this week. Oscar De La Hoya down in Cancun, Mexico. Cancun, Quintana Roo, Mexico. Let's have a look. Let's have a listen. Fun fact, my grandfather's home state, Quintana Roo. Here we go.
Nuestra pelea estelar. Again, going back to, before I even go into the fighters, I'm going to go to Oscar and Pepe because we had the opportunity to see this fight the first time in the event that you put together, Latino Night in Riyadh. Let's start with
Latino Night in Riyadh. It's funny. Because before that card, I was literally questioning why any non-Latino fighter would even want to fight on Latino night. Like, aren't you pretty much saying that this is a fight for the Latino side of the card? Like, all of the Latinos were A sides, all of the non-Latinos were B sides. And I don't know. I also thought it was weird to like promote an event that way. Real quick, Joe, what were your thoughts on Latino night? I mean, what if they had a night that was like
even know what to say.
What if the night was Wasp night? White Anglo-Saxon night, right?
I mean,
and
the main
on one
event-
side of the column, you had Chris Billum Smith and Liam Smith and all of these, you know, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant names. And on the other side, it was just B cards of like black dudes with whatever. I mean, what? That's how we're promoting boxing now?
This
Wasp
exactly,
night, Latino night, Chinese night, Korean night. What are we doing?
Yeah, this wasn't exactly like one of those Latin Fury old pay-per-view cards from
No,
back
because
in the
those
day.
were Latino versus Latino.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So
right. Yeah, that was really funny to me when they announced it. I'm like, really? You're gonna go over there and fight a Latino on Latino night? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think that's gonna go too well for you, and it didn't. But here we go.
Yeah.
What did that mean for you? La primera pelea tuvimos la oportunidad de verlo cuando tú pusiste el evento de Noche Latina en Riyadh. Y esta fue una de las peleas que robó el show precisamente. ¿Qué significa?
La verdad que sí, first of all, I was very happy to be in Riyadh presenting Latino Night.
Representing us?
Representing everyone. And it was a special night because obviously this fight here with Tevin Farmer and William Zepada stole the show.
Yes.
It was a fight that was back and forth. It was a fight that was, just going teeter-totter, just evenly matched. And the skill sets that every fighter just showed was incredible. So we had to do the rematch. I mean, it's just, there's no way around it. If you want to be the best, you got to fight the best. And I truly feel that the winner of this fight Saturday night with William and Farmer obviously will move on to bigger and better things. But the fact that Farmer put on a tremendous show and William puts on a tremendous show every single time, we just had to come back here in Cancun and make it happen once again. So I'm very proud that Farmer, he's one of those throwback fighters that is always in the gym, always training, always ready. And William, I mean, he reminds me of
he's one of these throwback fighters, always in the gym, always training, always ready to be an opponent that takes a fight on 2-3 weeks notice. Just how Golden Boy likes.
They're trying very hard to make Tevin Farmer look like the reincarnation of Pernell Whitaker, just so they can do damage control for William Zepada here. I get it. I'd probably be doing the same thing if I was him, but I kind of see through it.
And OG Blaze CCD, bro, nobody is against Latinos on the A side. Come on, nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying there's anything wrong with Canelo being the A side over, name your guy, Bivol, Triple G.
This has to be explained to you again.
Whatever. What I'm saying is, you have a whole night called Latino night. Like, what's the purpose of that?
Every fighter is Latino, which wasn't the case
every
here.
A side is Latino and the B sides are not Latino. Like, all I'm saying is, I would have said the same shit if it was Wasp night. I would have said it if it was Black night. I would have said if it was Black Latino night. And like, one side of the card was Lara and name your black Latino fighter.
If you had
Subriel Matias, and on the other side, it's like a guy who's brought in to lose. Go for it, Joe.
If you had all American fighters fighting all UK fighters, you can't call that American night because you have a diverse group of fighters.
Yeah.
So in order to have it be one night, you would have to have all of the fighters be in the same group.
Okay.
I'm befuddled that this has to be explained. I mean, okay. I mean, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're gonna have FBA night, right? Foundational Black American night, right? Where all of the FBA dudes are all A sides, right? and then you get all kind of other ethnicities and people of different backgrounds to be brought in as losers to lose to the FBA people.
Look,
are you telling me you would be cool with that? I wouldn't be. I'm not FBA, but I wouldn't be cool with it. I would say the same thing.
Even the fight poster did not bill this event as Latino night because they knew that other fighters were on the card with the Latino fighters. So she just, and again, no disrespect to Claudia. I like Claudia, but I just think her description of this event was a little bit off. That's all.
To be honest, until she brought it up, I Nerd is saying that what I said is at literally every PBC card. There is some truth to that, Nerd, to be honest with you. But and I've actually done videos on that before, to be honest, about how they always seem to pit FBA against name your other group. Anyways, I think we've explained this fully enough. Let's get back to Oscar. I just thought that I thought it was funny. I thought it was comical that he's out there literally describing a fighter that you bring in on, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks notice, someone who's always in the gym, someone who's always ready, which is great. It's great that those guys are, but literally every pro fighter should be in the gym. Every pro fighter should be ready to go.
Well, the reality of it is, and again, this is no disrespect to Tevin Farmer. Yeah. He was brought in as the opponent. Don't sit there and say this was like I said, the second coming of Pernell Whitaker, because that's not what this was.
No, it was not that. It's a little bit more Oscar here.
I say he reminds me of Salvador Sanchez, a fighter who throws a lot of punches, a fighter who has a beautiful skill, comes forward, a lot of heart, a lot of desire.
I don't think Salvador Sanchez hadn't fought a champion in this amount of fights yet. No. Or I don't think Salvador Sanchez hadn't fought a top contender really in the division with this. How many fights does he have again, Joe?
32.
32 fights. What was Salvador Sanchez doing at 32 fights, ladies and gentlemen? I bet I know it wasn't this.
Further ahead than this guy was.
I know it was. I know it wasn't this.
So I truly feel that we have one of those fights of the year candidates here in Cancun on Saturday night.
Agreed. La primera pelea se llevó obviamente a cabo en Riyadh y Oscar está muy orgulloso porque esta fue la pelea que se robó el show en una pelea, en una velada donde en realidad estaba representando sobre todo la cultura hispana. Muy importante para nosotros llevar esa parte de nosotros que es tan arraigada. Y cuando la pelea se llevó a cabo, que fue el tú por tú, ambos boxeadores demostrando sus mejores habilidades, una pelea que terminó por decisión dividida a favor del Camarón Cepeda, pero una pelea que teníamos que hacer la revancha. Y ahora te traigo a ti, Pepe, porque esa discusión fue...
We're going to Pepe now. I was mostly interested in to what Oscar was saying. So, I don't know. We went from Latino night in Riyadh to Rematch in Cancun, Mexico. Do you think that Tevin Farmer, Joe, let's say he fights the fight of his life, right? And dominates William Zepada, or at least wins the majority of the rounds. Do you think he's going to get a fair shake on the scorecards? And before you answer that question, everyone hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're new to the channel or not new to the channel, also hit the notification bell. If you're watching on Twitter, hit that heart, hit that retweet button, and click the link in the description and come on over to YouTube. There you go, Joe. What are your thoughts? Fair shake on the scorecards?
Well, there's got to be a reason why they're having the fight now in Mexico. Wouldn't you say that's kind of a little bit of an insurance policy for Zepada, or no?
Yeah, I'd say so. And there was another issue that was brought up too. I'm not know if you're familiar with it or not, but what are your thoughts on the fact that Tevin Farmer was saying that essentially William Zepada wasn't getting drug tested out there?
Yeah, I mean,
in Saudi.
Again, there's usually that fights in Mexico, from what I understand, a lot of them aren't drug tested, or at least third party drug tested. So I think if he's concerned with that, then he has a legitimate complaint, right?
Yeah, I mean that was an issue. Now, what I don't understand, and I can actually play that for you guys here. this here was Tevin Farmer talking about this fight after the fight took place. This is courtesy of Fight Hype. So I'll play a little bit of what Tevin Farmer had to say. Let's have a look. Let's have a listen. Here we go.
I just want to say thank you to all my supporters out there, everybody that supported me throughout the years, everybody that supported me last night. I really appreciate y'all. Hell of a fight last night. I'm not getting here to cry and complain, just letting everybody know that I'm okay. So I'm on my way to Africa right now. Feel free to leave me some comments.
So I guess shortly after he tweeted on November 17th at 5:01 a.m. I guess he was probably still out in Africa. Why wasn't me and Zepada drug tested? I asked multiple times in the locker room before we fought. They said after the fight and still no test. I'm just saying boxing dirty. Boxing is dirty. You never know. Thank you to all my supporters. So that's what he had to say.
So is he claiming that the commission didn't even do drug testing? Because when I looked at the event, let me see that it was a Indian tribe commission that was actually the commission.
Yeah,
for
it was the
fight.
Mohegan Sun Commission. Yeah,
Mohegan Sun, which is in Connecticut, down by in New England, down by close to my neck of the woods, which is probably like an hour and a half drive away from where I live.
Yeah, it's literally between where you live and I live, like smack in the middle.
About an hour and a half drive. So or close to 2 hours. It depends on with traffic, you know. But yeah, so that's something you'd have to take up with the commission, right? Because the commission is responsible for the pre and post fight drug testing, right? So
right,
if that wasn't even done, then that's a
no. Here you have a response from a Twitter user who says, "Did you have the option to request for drug testing prior to signing the contract?"
You don't have to have that.
And he says, yeah, to your point, he says it's automatic when fighting for a championship, and plus it's in my contract. So I mean, it does add another layer of intrigue, drama. A little bit of a subplot there. So we got another guy asking. It's funny. Can you think of fighters more accessible? Athletes more accessible than fighters? I mean, it's really amazing how much fighters engage with fans as opposed to athletes in other sports. It's actually something that I actually really like about boxing. But here you go. So the Twitter user says, "So you saying he was on something?" Farmer says, "I don't know. But one thing I do know is we were supposed to get tested and they didn't test us. And I asked. It's suspicious." So yeah, I mean it goes back and forth. It is something that he brought up. And we'll see how they attack it. One last one here I'll go through. It says, "So you think he was doped up, my boy?" Tevin Farmer says, "They didn't test us when they were supposed to, and I asked for it before the fight." So multiple statements made there by Tevin Farmer. I don't know how they're going to.
Zepada is the WBC interim world lightweight champion. So, yeah. You would think he would be part of the WBC clean boxing program. So all of you VADA acolytes out there, again, like, what good is this program if people aren't being tested?
They partnered up with VADA, and this is probably the most damning one here by Farmer. He says, in response to JB saying, "No wonder Zepada had all that stamina," he goes, "It's not adding up."
All right. Again, go to the commission, bro. Go to the commission.
Yeah.
I have a hard time believing that there was no post-fight drug testing after this fight by the commission.
Out there in Saudi?
Well, again, if the commission was responsible for sanctioning the fight, then it's their responsibility. So unless you ask them questions, now if I was Farmer, I would contact the commission, or at least I would have my lawyers contact the commission. Someone from my team would be contacting the commission if I really had some questions.
Well, you know what is really interesting to me about this is that um, the uh, the ABC, the Association of Boxing Commissions, right?
Yeah.
For a really long time, you know who the head of that commission has been? I mean, the ABC has been, right?
Yeah.
The head of the Mohegan Commission.
Yeah.
So the event was literally run by the commission whose head is like the head of all of the commissions in the United States. What was so, and this happened. So it's kind of a big statement to make. The other thing that I would say too is that it is interesting to me that they went to the Mohegan Commission for this particular fight card because don't they usually use the British Boxing Board of Control over there in Saudi, Joe?
From what I understand, they have been using that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just interesting that all of a sudden that it's being used by they're using this other one. I don't really know. And again, the head of that commission is Michael
Mike
Mazzulli,
Mazzulli. Yeah, that's
and
correct.
he's also the head of the entire ABC. So
And
he's a
another
very
guy.
professional guy.
He's another guy that actually criticized the WBC clean boxing program, and he was more supportive and he was more of a proponent of how they did in the UFC with USADA, because
So
the UFC was testing every single fighter on the roster, and he was saying that the WBC clean boxing program was even inconsistent with the top 10 ranked guys and the championship fights and all of the eliminators. It was supposed to be 24/7, and most of the fighters that were enrolled in that program, they weren't being tested for upwards of a year. He was very outspoken about the WBC clean boxing program and criticizing VADA.
so apparently we've offended Eddie Alvarez, who has lost respect for both of us.
Why?
What did I say?
I have. I
I
mean,
don't know what I said.
yeah, you
But the
can't.
fact that I'm discussing just what Tevin Farmer says,
Yeah.
don't hate what I'm reporting. I'm just literally bringing you what Tevin Farmer said. I never said I agreed with it or disagreed with it. We're just discussing it. I guess you can't discuss what fighters say without being called a hater.
Hater is the new word for, if you disagree with me and it bothers me, then my default to you is I'm going to call you a hater.
But I didn't even say anything to disagree with or to.
No, if he
I just said what
disagrees,
I
if
just
he
read what
disagrees
Tevin
with
Farmer
us,
was saying.
no, if he disagrees with what like anything we're saying right now, right? Then automatically, if what we're saying bothers him because it's not in line what he believes,
You mean what Tevin Farmer's saying bothers him?
well,
And because I'm reading it, I'm a hater.
he could be directing it at me, and you're being lumped into my opinion, because my opinion is Tevin Farmer needed to do, like, if he has a complaint, I'm critical of him being public with it. He should go to the commission. That's what I'm saying. And if anyone has a problem with that, then that's fine. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I know if I have a problem with somebody or something, like if somebody fucks up with me, whether it be any entity, and they do something that I feel is wrong to me, or they don't fulfill what I believe they should be doing, I don't sit on my hands and just complain about it. I'll contact that entity. So if he's going to just sit there and complain, and he's not going to contact, like, the only way he could truly know if Zepada wasn't tested is he would have to contact the commission. Was he in the locker room post? Was he in Zepada's locker room post fight? So there's no way he could say Zepada wasn't tested if he wasn't in the locker room. How does he know that? That's speculation on his part, in my opinion. Now, I'm not defending Zepada, but I'm just being objective here. How do you know someone wasn't tested pre or post fight? You're not present when someone gets tested.
I guess Tevin Farmer is suspicious of Zepada being tested because he's saying he wasn't tested. So he's like, if they didn't test me, they probably didn't test Zepada. I
Well,
think that's the
Tevin
conclusion he's drawing. But here's the thing:
did
I'm
Tevin
only reporting what Tevin Farmer said. Like, matter of fact, the reporting was actually done by Fight News.
Yeah, but did
I
Tevin
played
Farmer
a
say I
Fight
wasn't
News
tested?
video and literally just read the tweets.
No, but
That's all I did.
But hold up. Did Tevin Farmer say that he wasn't tested? I didn't even hear him say that.
Okay. So this is the real issue. We should be talking up the fighters, not trash them, especially on fight day.
Well, Tevin Farmer brought this issue up. So if he wanted to focus on the actual fight, then he wouldn't have brought this up. That's his decision to bring this up.
Okay, I'm getting it. See, this is good. We're interacting with the chat here. So Iceman is saying he dropped that comment before y'all started talking about that, I believe. So his problem was probably when we were going through Zepeda's record.
No, he's defending Zepada.
You were basically giving me a list of opponents, and literally every one of those opponents I thought would beat William Zepeda. Fam, that's my honest thinking. I do think Abdullah Mason beats William Zepeda.
That's right.
I do believe that. I'm not hating. I just think Abdullah Mason is better. I do think Shakur. I do think Tevin Farmer. I do think these guys would beat William Zepeda. I do think that Raymond Murataya. Sorry. Go ahead with it.
Let me ask you this, Mike.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little amped up here, man. That's why I'm being a little aggressive here with the commentary. But let me ask you this. You and I, and you correct me if I'm wrong, were there any bigger Tyson Fury fans than you and I before those two Usyk fights?
No.
So when people were coming on here making fun of Fury, saying Fury was going to lose, he was going to get knocked out, did we get our panties in a bunch about it? We just say, okay, that's your opinion, and we moved on. Like, if you're, again, I hate to say this, but if you're a middle-aged man and you are emotionally attached to a fighter like that, when someone criticizes a fighter who you think is going to win, that says more about you than us. Because I'm probably the biggest Tyson Fury fan in the history of Tyson Fury's career. I don't think there's any outside of his family and his training team. I was probably the biggest Tyson Fury fan. And I would go on videos and I would be on panels, and people would literally say the most craziest criticisms about Tyson Fury. I didn't get overly defensive about it. I didn't live vicariously through another man. I'm 55 years old, man. Like, I stand on my own too. So if you get emotionally charged when someone criticizes a fighter you like, that says more about you than it does about us. I'm just being honest. I mean, that's something you have to work out with yourself. Not something I have to fix for you. That's a you problem, not a me problem.
Yeah, look, I'm willing to show the other side. So here we go. This one's for you, Eddie. I hope you enjoy this over here, because it sounds like this is kind of what you want to hear about. So I'll play it. Let's have a look. Let's have a listen, and Joe and I will respond. But I'm guessing he's looking for some content more like this. Here we go.
Of course, so you say nobody wants to fight you. Well, check out William Zepeda Saturday night on DAZN. He's begging me to fight you. See you there.
I don't know. Is that believable? Is he begging to fight Shakur Stevenson? Now, here's the problem. My answer might get me labeled a hater, but Joe, why don't you tell me what you think?
All Eddie Alvarez has to do is just be honest with himself. Just say this. I am a huge William Zepeda fan, and when you criticize him, it hurts my feelings. It triggers me and it makes me upset. Can you please stop criticizing him? And my response would be, no, I can't do that, because I do this show every week, and it's my obligation as someone who does this show to be objective and give my honest opinion. I can't lie to you and tell you I think someone that's 28 years old and has 32 fights and has never fought for a world title, I can't tell you that that's not a red flag to me. I can't lie. I got to be honest. And if you want me to lie, I will have to respond to you and say, I can't lie and tell you what you want to hear, Mr. Alvarez. And if that's what you want, I can't give you what you want in that instance. I'm sorry. All I can do is give you an honest opinion about somebody's career and just just talk about it. That's what I'm doing here. If that bothers you, then you have to be honest with yourself and say, you guys are making fun of my favorite fighter. It hurts my feelings. Can you please stop doing it? And I would have to respectfully decline. That's all.
There you go. So OG Blaze, a salute. Thank you for dropping a comment. Everybody hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notification bell to know every time Joe goes live here on Ringside Reporter Live. Flagship show, of course, being Sunday night, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, 11 p.m. if you're out there in the UK, which I know a lot of you are watching from the UK. OG Blaze says, Team Zepada said Shakur didn't want to fight on Canelo undercard because it was too soon, quote unquote. This is again my problem with some of the stuff I've been seeing this week from fans of William Zepada. And look, I don't have a problem with William Zepada. I actually was really high on William Zepada and thought that he was a real threat in the 135-pound division. I no longer think that. I'm allowed to change my opinion, but I also don't believe that this narrative is at all, should I say, real. I think it's a little bit disingenuous, and I'll tell you why. Joe, what month are we in? End of March, right?
March, correct. Yeah.
End of March, right? And we're pretty much in April. Next Tuesday's April. All right, we're in spring. Canelo's fighting in May, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are we to believe that a legitimate offer was made to Shakur Stevenson to fight in May on the Canelo undercard?
No,
especially when he was just complaining about his hands, and now he needs to get treatment for them. How would he be ready to fight?
Think about this,
and then they're like, "Yeah, Shakur said it was too soon. It is too soon."
I've been following this sport for a long time, and I've seen how people move, and I can kind of decipher through things and look behind the curtain. William Zepada is the WBC interim lightweight champion, which means now he gets taken out of the rankings of the other sanctioning bodies. So now they can turn around and say, well, we can't fight the other guys because now we're taken out of the rankings. So we can fight those guys in unifications, but obviously they can't enforce mandatories on us now because we have an interim title. But what usually does happen is when there's an interim titleist, like there was with Dillian White for the longest time, and he was talked about being made the mandatory, but for whatever reason he had to keep fighting eliminators, and he kept being pushed back.
Well, he was the number one contender at that time, and then they placated him with that interim title, remember?
No, but the organization can still make you a mandatory fight for the real champion if you have that interim title, is what I'm saying. And in that case, that's what they did make him the mandatory challenger, but their excuse was we didn't order the fight yet, right? So the WBC could order this fight if they wanted to, but they haven't done that. So you have to ask yourself, why? Why have they not ordered this fight? Right? Why? Just like when David Benavidez was the WBC, I believe, interim super middleweight champion, when Canelo was the real champion, the full champion. They said, okay, David, we'll give you a choice. You could be mandatory for Canelo, or you could be mandatory for the WBC titleist at light heavyweight. Right? That's what they said. That's what they said. So David's also an interim titleist by the WBC at light heavyweight, right? So he had a choice to fight either the WBC titleist or fight Canelo at 168 or fight the WBC titleist at 175. So the WBC has not mandated Zepeda to fight Shakur. So you have to ask yourself why. Why not? Why not? Maybe they're not confident that Zepeda could win the fight. Maybe they want 2 sanctioning fees. Maybe because Shakur's not a big enough name, he doesn't have the clout for them to want to force this fight. So yeah, these are all questions you have to ask. So
Can I ask you a question?
it leads me to believe this guy is being maneuvered carefully because they're not confident that this guy
Bro,
can
the
beat
the
Shakur.
evidence is smacking us right in the face.
Yeah,
Okay? You said it yourself. How many fights has he had?
32.
Oh, I lost myself. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah, so how many fights has he had? I lost connection there.
32.
32. And how many top contenders from the list that you shared has he fought?
0.
Okay, great. And in his last fight, he fought a former world champion from what weight class? 130 pounds.
130, right?
Right?
I was moving
And
up.
that guy was coming off of a loss, okay? Dropped him, and I would argue should have won the fight. Like,
Yeah.
the evidence is smacking me in the face. I'm sorry to just give people my honest opinion about this, but that's my honest opinion. And before I go to the second part of this comment here by OG Blaze, thank you, OG Blaze, for dropping a comment again, by the way. Edwin De Los Santos versus William Zepeda. That's for you, Joe.
I would
You paused, you stopped.
I would probably
It's a competitive fight.
I would probably pick Zepeda in that fight.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't bet the house on it. Let's just put it that way.
There you go. So again, Team Zepeda said Shakur didn't want to fight on Canelo undercard because it was too soon. Is it too soon?
Yeah, but do we even know if Shakur turned the fight down? Do we even know?
I mean, even if he did,
was he offered the fight?
It's funny to me because you do have fighters that have been doing this, like, and it's not just William Zepeda, right? You'll have a fighter who says he wants to fight someone and then calls that fighter out when he knows that fighter is injured or is in negotiations to fight somebody else, or he's even already accepted a fight. I kind of put it into that kind of a move. I don't know if this was formally responded to or not by Shakur, but that's what William Zepeda's trainer is alleging. And
shout out to Tevin Farmer, because in his fight previous to Raymond Murataya, previously to Zepeda, he fought Raymond Murataya at 135.
Yeah.
So, he took on this guy, moved up in weight.
Back-to-back top contenders.
And he fought a tough guy that a lot of guys didn't want to fight. And this guy Murataya,
including Zepeda.
And this guy Murataya, right, who is a knockout artist. I mean, Tevin Farmer gave Murataya a run for his money. But Murataya, scored a knockdown in round 8. So he kind of sealed the deal in a 10-round fight. Right? And there was no conspiracy. There was no controversy after the Murataya fight. No one said that Tevin Farmer beat Murataya, right? So
I don't know. We'll see how it happens. So let's spend the last few minutes here, Joe. Let's actually kind of break down this fight a little bit. On paper, if you remove what happened in the last fight from the equation, on paper, this is a fight that a guy like William Zepeda should win and should have won the first time. He's a bigger guy. I think he's like 5'9", so he's not a small lightweight.
Not small.
He's a pressure fighter. He's a strong puncher. He's a southpaw. He's got all of the qualities that I outlined at the beginning of the show. On paper, he should beat a Tevin Farmer, especially at this point of Tevin Farmer's career, right? Because what does Tevin Farmer do? He jabs, he moves, he shows a lot of head movement, he fights at angles, right? But you should, at some moments in the ring, using your footwork, cutting off of the ring, putting him in the awkward positions, and lining up a Farmer for that that straight left or that right hook that has been so debilitating on many occasions for William Zepeda, but he just couldn't really pin Devin Farmer down like that, and it ended up being a very competitive fight with Devin Farmer boxing and moving at times. But here's the other thing that was really surprising to me, Joe. When Devin Farmer was just standing and trading with him and getting the better of it on the inside.
Devin Farmer hurt Zepeda a couple times in this fight and buzzed him on several occasions. So that was shocking to me. Listen, it's probably going to be another competitive fight. It's probably going to go the distance. And Zepeda's just going to win the decision on it because if there's any competitive close rounds, he's going to get the rounds, right? Because it's in Mexico. And I'm sorry to say that, but that's just what I believe. And my recommendation here is to take the prop bet. William Zepeda by decision at a plus 160. That's the bet for me. He's a minus 125 by KO. So the odds makers are telling you they're not 100. They're kind of favoring Zepeda to win this fight by knockout. I don't think he's going to knock out Farmer. I could be wrong, but I'm going to pick Zepeda by decision here in a competitive decision. It'll probably be like 115, 113 on one card and probably 116 and 112 on two of the other cards. So I would take the plus 160 on the decision prop with William Zepeda. That's my recommendation.
There you go. And I'm also picking Zepeda in this fight. Personally, I think that if he is even half of what I previously stated that I thought he was, he should be able to go away, have a really good training camp where they focused on, addressing some of the technical things that can be done to kind of improve from that last performance. Because again, on paper, he should be beating Tevin Farmer.
100%.
He's a bigger fighter. He throws more punches. He's a harder puncher. So, I mean, those are the intangibles right there. And he's a younger fighter. He's undefeated. I mean, everything was there for him to win at Latino night. But let's end on this, Joe. Oscar De La Hoya talking about the reason why he wasn't working with Shakur in the past. Here we go.
Hey, what's up, Clapback Thursdays? Let's start with the WBC and ordering Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda.
I brought this up because you were specifically asking, Joe, why the WBC hadn't ordered that. But this is why I brought this one up, because I remembered it. Here we go.
Ordering? What does that mean? They ordered Canelo Benavidez like 3 years ago, and that hasn't happened. William will make his decision very soon, and he has 3 other options. Shakur Stevenson, you're a free agent, you're a great fighter, great talent, but not for me. I believe that when somebody says you're not fighting for the public, I cannot promote. Now, there's a lot of rumors going on that the South...
There you go. So, I mean, you heard it. I didn't want to answer your question. I wanted to let Oscar answer your question.
First of all,
go for it.
First of all, being put in the mandatory status doesn't mean that the fight is ordered yet. So
yeah.
David was put in the mandatory status, and then he was given a choice to exercise his mandatory status at 168 or 175. And at the time, Canelo was working with PBC. So probably the grand plan for PBC at that time was for Canelo to fight Jake Paul in a monster event, right? So they were putting David on the back burner, in my opinion. I could be wrong. But David chose to go to 175 and become the mandatory challenger at 175. And now only recently has the WBC said, or at least stated, it's been reported that they will now order Bivol to fight David Benavidez. That's what they said. So even though he was the mandatory, they did not officially ever order that fight with Canelo. So that is an incorrect statement.
There you go. On that note, Joe, enjoy the fight live tonight on DAZN from Cancun, Quintana Roo, Mexico, where the great AMLO, previous president, initiated the Tren Maya project, Who would have thought, Joe, that Mexico would be getting high-speed rail before the United States? But they're doing it, and it's going to be even faster once they electrify the system, which is currently running on diesel. So salute to Mexico Lindo. I'm going to be watching the fight. Salute to the Yucatan Peninsula, and salute to all of the people, even the people that think we're haters. Check out hour number 2. We're going to be talking about the ESPN card, which doesn't only feature Sandy Ryan trying to get revenge against Mikaela Mayer, but also features WBO welterweight champion of the world, Brian Norman Jr. So we're going to be talking about him as well. I'm actually going to ask Joe about some other topics, including the return of Deontay, the Bronze Bomber Wilder. How excited are you about that, Joe? Doesn't look like you're that excited based on your response, but we'll see you there for hour number 2. Hit the link. It's in the description, and it's also in the chat. We'll see you over there in a moment. This was another sucker punch. And yes, Emiliano Vargas is also on the card, and we'll talk about him as well, OG Blaze. Take care.